welcome to the Lirone Glikman show, the show that explores the human factor around business and entrepreneurship in a hybrid world. I'm Lirone Glikman, your host, the global business development specialist, business relationship and personal branding amplifier and speaker. And today, we're actually going to dive in one of the foundations of any human interaction, self-worth, and with that, self-expression. And my guest today is someone remarkable, Anna Weiner. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
So good to have you here. And one of the reasons is because you're the president of Rmrkblty and the creator of I'm Remarkable movement while working at Google, which is, if you haven't heard of it yet, a global movement that empowers everyone with a focus on underrepresented groups to celebrate their achievements in the workplace and beyond, while challenging the social perception around self-promotion. How important is that?
That was a long intro, so thank you for that. I'm really, really glad to be here, and we're going to talk about all the different parts of what you just said.
I'm so intrigued by this interview with you and learn how did you come up with such an important topic and how you really change lives. And that's definitely what we're going to touch on. But before I start, I always kind of give bio, so our listeners and viewers from around the world to know who we have here with us. So Anna, as I said, she's created this remarkable, unremarkable movement. And actually, the movement has reached over 500,000 participants in 180 countries with over 4,000 facilitators, and just got licensed to Anna's newly created NGO called Rmrkblty by Google. So congratulations. It just happened recently, right?
Yeah, that's very, very news from the oven. That's 1 month old news.
So we have a scoop here. And you're going to tell us, because this is actually the NGO actually going to take some remarkable movement, take it to the next level. You worked in multiple Google offices. You will share more about it, but you were there for 13 years across Israel and London, and previously led Think with Google EMEA B2B growth marketing and EMEA curriculum development for Google's largest external training programs and digital skills, Grow with Google. So you've been around in the training and growing leadership, learning and development area for a while. And you're a speaker, you're committed to developing women and underrepresented groups. And this is actually why we're here today, to share more and learn more from you. So without further ado, we're going to talk about self-worth and work as an entrepreneur at work, remarkable practices, and how to leverage inner feelings, perceptions to drive external business results. Now over to you, remarkable Anna. So how did you start it and turned Unremarkable into a global movement?
Yeah, and thank you again. I'm very excited and happy to be here. So let's talk about the early days of I'm Remarkable, and we're talking about December 2015. So I was working in London at that time, and we were offered to join a training that was aimed at women, mid-level women, and the goal of that training was to help you get out of your comfort zone. And in one of the exercises, they've asked us to write down our achievements. And think about, again, just to put you in that mindset, you're sitting in a room with 10 other women, you have a facilitator, and they're giving you a blank page and ask you to write down your achievements. And then they've asked us, each one of us, to stand in front of the room and read it out loud, which at that moment I quite struggled, because also I couldn't, I think I wrote 3 things maybe, and then was very nervous about standing in front of this room and reading it out loud. But I also had a few other feelings, which the most important of them was when other women were standing there and reading their achievements, I was sitting there and thinking to myself, oh my God, why are they bragging? And I got out from the room, and I talked to a colleague of mine, and a colleague and a friend who went actually through the same training just in New York. And she said, you know what, Anna, I think people go through a super interesting process in this exercise. Let's do a video about it. And there is something really, really cool at Google called 20%, which you can actually go and take 1 day a week and work on a project that is not your day job. At the time, I was looking for something like that. So I said, great, let's do this project. As Lirone told you before, I worked in marketing at Google. I quite like working on creative projects. We needed some money. So I went to my previous director and I said, could we have some money to produce this video that is actually going to make an impact on women all over the world? Because it highlights the need to self-promote and the struggles that people face when they do this. And she said a sentence that actually changed the course of my life, my professional life, my personal life as well, to be honest. And she said, Anna, if this is as important as you say it is, how are you going to reach every person on the planet?
Good question. Good question.
A very good question. I think my heart sank at that moment. I was like, oh my God, that's not what I was aiming for. But I took this as a challenge, and me and my colleague, so the other Anna, that we were working on this together in the beginning, we said, okay, let's take on the challenge and see how we turn this from just doing a video project to a bigger thing that is actually going to help us reach people. And this is where the Unremarkable movement was born. Where at the heart of the movement, we have a 90-minute workshop that through this workshop, we actually deliver the messages of I'm Remarkable. But it's not just about the workshop itself. We've actually, as Lirone mentioned before, created a community that now consists of over 500,000 people across 181 countries that have been through the workshop.
That's amazing. And I love what you said about the question, because they said that the quality of questions can definitely impact the quality of the results. And she basically, it seems to me like she kind of planted the vision of like the how you're going to do it. And as you said, this question really changed the course of the event for you. And I'm happy that she did and you did. And obviously, I've heard of Unremarkable for many years, and I work in kind of similar. I work on personal branding, so I do touch upon some of the topics. But you rightfully requested for me to go through Unremarkable, even though I read a lot and saw some videos, but it's not like going through the workshop. And when I went through the workshop, I definitely realized more what it's all about. So if you can share a bit about the model of the program. And how does this 90-minute workshop and community create such an important impact?
So let me tell you a bit about the beginning of how we came about what you see as the workshop right now. So we started, after hearing that question, we actually had to do a pilot to see that what we're thinking about actually makes sense. And we ran a small pilot in Poland with 200 women. And I keep saying women, we're going to talk about the audience of Unremarkable in a second. But just a TLDR to say that today we reach everyone. But it did start as a workshop for women. So we did this pilot and we got a lot of feedback. So the initial workshop we created was changed through the course of about 5-6 months. And since then has been updated a few once a year. But the model that you're talking about, so the way that we run this is we, as Unremarkable, train facilitators who are all volunteers. So we deliver the workshop. The workshop is for free for participants. And this is a very important point for us because we really want to make sure that the workshops reach everyone, no matter where you are in the world. And this is the model. Basically, we go and train facilitators and they go and deliver the workshop for their audiences. It can be in the company that they work. It can be in their social groups. It can be for family, friends, social circles, whatever it might be. And I can tell you that we've had workshops run on boats, in parks, in classrooms, in universities, in workplaces.
Anywhere.
So pretty much anywhere. And that's the model.
That's amazing. So you're saying basically it's free. That's the answer. Some of the answer to the question that you were asked. I mean, how to reach so many people. And when I joined the session, there was actually a really nice facilitator from India And with me in the groups were women from Europe, from Holland, from Spain, Israel. And you know what was really interesting is that the self-worth, the notions are kind of similar to humans, to people, no matter where you are and which culture you're coming from. And that brings me to the next question. What is being remarkable for you? I mean, is there any differences between, and also between men and women? How do you see it for you? And what do you see the differences between men and women?
So I think the other unique point about I'm Remarkable is that your reference point is just you. We're not asking you to compare your achievements to the achievements of your colleagues or other people out there. What we're aiming for with I'm Remarkable is to help you realize how remarkable you are for everything that you've done. And if we talk about, competition or goals, the point is to make you the best version of yourself that you want to be. Yeah. It's not about turning Lirone to be the next Nobel Prize winner or the next person to finish a marathon or, whatever it might be. The idea is, how do you look at your achievements that you've achieved in your life? It can be professional, it can be personal, and you realize that these are remarkable achievements for you. And the collection of all of these achievements is what makes you so special and what makes you you. Yeah. And I think that many of us are taking a lot of the things that we do and achieve in our life for granted because everybody does it. And I can give you an example. I have two kids. They're almost 3 and almost 5. And even though I know there are billions of women in the world who've gone through pregnancies and labor and birth and have raised kids, for me, this is a remarkable achievement. And the fact that I am able to mix raising a family and having a family and being a good partner while having a full-time job is a remarkable achievement. And it doesn't matter that you have billions of women around the world that do it, or billion of parents around the world that do it. For me, that's a remarkable achievement. And that is important to then go and communicate both for myself and for the people around me.
That's so amazing. So you're saying, first of all, put the lens on yourself, on your capacity, on your potential, on your desires rather than other people. And two things come to mind. First of all, on actually the first ever episode of the Glikman show, I had the honor of interviewing Dr. Ivan Meisner, who's the guru of networking, the founder of Global BNI Communities. And he said something I will never forget. He said that when we compare ourselves to others, we compare our inner self to other outer self. So we see our internal, thought and inspiration and so on, but we can only see the external part of the other person. And I want to take that to this first session that I'm Remarkable idea came to life. And you were saying, I saw some people in the room, some women that were bragging. So how should we maybe see or approach people who we think are bragging, or is it okay to brag, or how do you view the bragging notion of other people and of ourselves?
So this brings me to the two most important messages of I'm Remarkable, which I'm sure as you've been through the workshop, let's see if you now remember. There are two key things. So I'm going to TLDR this for you. So even if you don't join an I'm Remarkable workshop, if you remember these two things, you're good, or it's a good start. I don't think you're ever good. I think you always need to work on improving, but those two things are very important. The first one that we say is that it's not bragging if it's based on facts. So the fact that for me, I have my own unconscious biases. And I was at that time, again, we're talking about 7 years ago, looking at this woman and thinking, oh my God, why is she bragging? She was not bragging. She was standing and telling facts about her life and about her achievements. And the fact that I've perceived this as bragging is my problem. It's not her problem.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Again, remember, it's not bragging if it's based on facts. So if you tell something that is the truth and is backed with numbers and data and facts that are not arguable, you're not bragging. You're just telling the truth. And the second thing that is very important and is connected here is that achievements don't speak for themselves. So this is the other side of the coin, which says you can't just sit there and expect that everybody around you are gonna be aware of what you do, not your manager, not your colleagues, not your partner, not your family. And I think this is the very, very important point that we come and say, you first of all need to acknowledge what your accomplishments are, and you can do it by writing it on a piece of paper. You can keep an email draft open in your computer. You can write it in your journal. You can do it in whatever post-it, whatever way that works for you. But just be sure that you acknowledge your accomplishments, again, personal or professional, and then go and share it with the people that need to know about your accomplishments.
Yeah, and that's also important. I mean, who are you sharing the messages with? I mean, you come from the marketing background is about what is your message, who your audience is kind of similar. I mean, what do you want to bring out there? But there is another layer here. I mean, there are all kind of demons. You know, we've all been there. We've all stepped in the room and we saw people who are seem remarkable, and we think, oh my God, I'm not this and I'm not that. Self-worth, I'm imposter syndromes. One day they will, discover I don't know anything. So is there a way to kind of deal with this uncomfortable feeling, with this challenges, with this, inner chatter that is basically killing us from the inside?
Totally. This is a super, super important point. And this is where also, I think there are two layers here, and this is where the two parts of Unremarkable touch. So the first one is improving our motivation and skills to self-promote. So that's how we work on ourselves. But that's not enough. And I think this is the point that you touched. We also need to change the social perception around self-promotion. Because today, even when you go on Google and you search self-promotion, the dictionary definition gives you quite a negative definition for what it means. And it talks a lot about bragging. So when we talk about Unremarkable, the purpose for us here is to go and train everyone. So not just the people that we would call underrepresented that might have those struggles, but actually we also go and train the C-level in different companies. We go and train the middle management, because we need to be able to change the culture of sharing, the culture of different teams, the way that people then go and talk about their achievements and encourage that that sharing, while creating a supportive environment and not a judgmental environment that is a lot of the backlash that some people might feel when they go and they talk about their achievements. So a few quick tips on this one. I think this is, when we talk about self-promotion, it's a muscle. So probably 99.9% of us were not born with this ability to go and talk about their achievements in full confidence and not being apologetic about us sharing our achievements. So we need to start from, with small steps, but persistence is really important and practicing is really important. So the homework that we give in the workshop is for you to go write down on a piece of paper again, or in your computer, whatever works for you, your achievements from the past 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, and then read them out loud for yourself in front of a mirror, and then go and share this with a friend that you trust or a family member that you trust, and then put some time with the person that needs to hear about these achievements. It can be your coach, it can be your manager, it can be your colleague, it can be your partner, and tell them. And if it's easier for you to read it from a piece of paper, then do that. If you just want to practice saying it, just do that. But make sure you also share with them that this is what you're going to do. So set an agenda for that meeting, and then make it a habit. So write down for yourself every period of time, whatever works for you. It can be daily, it can be weekly, it can be quarterly, yearly. The list of achievements. What really works for me is writing it down as it happens, because sometimes we then forget, and just practice saying it in the different environments that you need them. You need those achievements to be set. Have my top 3 achievements, my top 3 things I'm working on in your mind for those hallway conversations, for those elevator pitches, for those
Mhm.
elevator conversations when you find yourself stuck with the CEO in the elevator
Yeah.
for
What do you say?
20, 30 seconds. You need to have that situation ready and prepped in your mind.
Yeah.
Because that will help you feel more comfortable in that situation, that you know what you want to say.
So you're saying great things. First of all, normalize it. If you can normalize it within your team, within your company, try to make it like a part of the culture, which again, either go through a remarkable program or really try to initiate like this talk on team meetings or one-on-ones, put it in the calendar. Just once you initiate it, you can create yourself possibly an environment that also accepts talking about your achievements. But let me take it one step further. Okay, what you're saying is very important, and you gave us really great and actionable tips. Write it down to yourself first of all, communicate it. But still, you and I both probably heard so many people that saying, "But I hate marketing myself, and I don't like marketing myself." And how would you answer the real fear and feeling that we just don't like put ourselves out there?
Yeah. So, yes, I've been hearing a lot of that feedback. Let's look at the data. So we've been looking, and this is part of the research that we're sharing through the Unremarkable workshop, and we've looked at research that was done in the US that actually tells us that people who don't promote themselves actually languish behind or stay behind their self-promoting peers. What does that mean? So think about your put yourself in the shoes of your manager 1 second. Your manager probably manages somewhere between 3 to 15 people. If they're really unlucky and they have 15 direct reports, but they need to split themselves and split their attention between all of the direct reportees, their own colleagues and managers and stakeholders. And I think what many of us are expecting is for them to know everything we've done, give us the pay rise, give us the promotion, give us the bigger project, just because we do the work and we do it perfectly. So I'm here to tell you, no, it doesn't work like that. It's your responsibility to make sure that your stakeholders, your sponsors, your colleagues actually know what you're working on, and to be able to communicate it in a simple, concise way that is data backed. So if you think about, whatever cycles you have in your company, you need to make sure that your manager, whether it's a weekly summary of the things I've achieved, or when you finish a project, making sure that you share a summary of that project with the key data points that are really important.
Yeah.
And again, you need to try and make this quite concise. Nobody likes long emails and long summaries, but really explain why you worked on what you worked, what did it do, and what was the impact. Because then think about your manager going into that meeting where they talk about, okay, who are the next people we need to promote? Who are the next people we need to give them a pay rise? You want them, they need to sit there and represent your achievements. They need to represent you, and it's your responsibility to make sure that they know what to say and they have all the information to do that. So I think shifting the mindset from I need to market myself to I actually, part of my job responsibility is making sure that my manager and my stakeholders know what I'm working on and what are the results of what I did. So that mind shift is really, really important. And I had one more things to say here, is a quick tip. So again, we were really like practical tips here. So when you're working on a project and you build your project plan, make sure that you follow the 80-20 rule, which is a different to 80-20 rule for Unremarkable, which means that you need to plan for 80% of the time to do the work that you need to do. And for 20% of the time, you put that time aside to make sure that you communicate the project, the timeline, the goals, the results to the people that need to know about it. So thinking about all the different ways you need to do it, but actually putting it in your project plan. So it's not a buy side after you finished with everything and you're like scrambling to get that done.
So as you said, and that's the most important point, like it's a part of your job. It's really a part of your job to promote yourself. And when I guess we're not taught anywhere. That's what I always say. We're not taught how to network, how to market or build our own brand, but sharing what we did is definitely a part of our job. Nobody ever told you that, but newsflash, but you really have to do it. And in 2021, I did this my own kind of research and about more than 100 women in Israel. I asked them about personal branding, and two main things came to mind. One is that women said, whether they were entrepreneurs or working in Israeli organizations, that nobody ever taught them how to brand themselves or how to do this. And the second main thing was that they feel uncomfortable in bragging, like don't want to come across as braggers. And again, they don't know how to do it. So it just comes to all those great tips that you give that can really help deal with that. And with that in mind, let's talk about women and men. So, you just mentioned some common scenarios like team meetings, email, hallway conversation. Can you offer some advice for how women entrepreneurs, or again, in the organization, can effectively promote themselves in those everyday scenarios? And maybe if you have also a take from men, how could men promote themselves in such scenarios?
So I think my tips would be the same for men and women. I actually don't do the distinction here. I think the distinction here is not gender-based, rather, how do you feel inside? So you have a lot of people, you have women who are the most extrovert, confident people you might see, and you might have some men who are very shy, introverted, and less secure. So I think this is really about you looking at yourself, identifying your strengths and weaknesses, and understanding what limits you from doing that thing, which is talking about your achievements and sharing your success. So again, I would steer away from the gender split, but rather just really understanding that each individual are unique for what they are, regardless of their background, gender, skin color, cultural background, social, socioeconomic background, or whatever it might be. But I think the just going back to the tips we shared before, it's really, I think what really also helps is finding a person in your workplace that you trust, that you can really practice with. And it will help if that person actually knows the culture well, because then they can give you tips, not just by how you communicate, but actually show you the perspective or tell you about the perspective of others in your workplace. And that really, really helps. So, we talk a lot about mentors and sponsors. It can just be a friend. It doesn't have to be this fancy title of a sponsor or a mentor, but just having somebody in your workplace that you trust, that you can consult with, that you can share your thoughts with, that you can practice with about things you need to present, things you need to be saying. So that really, really helps. Being prepared is really important. So it means you need to do the work, and it's not going to come spontaneous. You need to really think hard what you want to say, who you're going to say it to, how the message might change between the different people that you're going to be talking to, and really come prepared and practice.
And I liked what you say, when you have this buddy, a friend, colleague that can really bounce off ideas with you, it can really build their confidence better before that meeting with the team, or before the meeting with a manager. So this really can give us confidence in those interactions. So that's definitely a great point. I want to turn over the spotlight a bit to you. So what, from your experience, what challenges did you have early days in terms of your self-promotion or self-worth, maybe, if you don't mind sharing? We all have them.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very interesting question, because when I was growing up, so I was born in the USSR. So we moved to Israel when I was 6. Both my parents are software developers. And the way I was brought up is that there is nothing I couldn't do. So, like in terms of my example at home, my mom was full-time. She had a full-time job. And as I was growing up, I actually, when I grew up, I always was like in high school, I was one of 5 girls in a class of 40 kids. When I was a kid, I always played with the boys. My tendency is much more towards math, the exact sciences. And I remember something I told myself, it's gonna sound a bit arrogant, which
Safe place, go for it.
When I was applying for the internship at Google, the one sentence I said myself, I know they're only accepting one, but if it's only one, why shouldn't it be me? And that was a really important thing for me to come and say, okay, yeah, I might not be the most perfect candidate, but a good candidate. And I really, really wanted. I think my motivation to get that job was in the roof. It doesn't mean I didn't have my doubts, and I didn't, in the interview, I remember I was sweating like crazy. Which obviously you have those inner feelings that are expressing out, but I think I was really growing up with that sense of there is nothing I can do. I can achieve anything that I want. I wanted to be an astronaut. Obviously, I'm not. But I think that was the feeling that kind of carried me through. I do have to say that after a few years in a big corporate, you start feeling those insecurities a bit more. You start getting signals from your surrounding. So, you might not be promoted. Some of your colleagues are promoted. You might not get the project that you wanted and your colleagues do, and you start comparing yourself to other people, and you start having those insecurities and doubts. And at this point in time, I think that what really helped me is finding those people in the organization that believed in me, and also having really, really good friends outside of the organization to give a bit of real life perspective. Because I think that many, many times we're getting so sucked into a story we build for ourselves in our head that it limits us from trying new things. It limits us from pursuing that dream that we might have, because we're so scared of somebody telling us something mean or telling us no, or for us getting rejection. And, we're talking about real life experience, but I've had a few cases where I had a good friend that came to me, I was really down. There was something at work, and I got pretty bad feedback from my manager at the time. And I remember it was, a super stressful time. I was just about to get married. I felt like they're gonna fire me. It was a really kind of double emotional time. And I sat with a really good friend, and he said, Anna, that, whatever your feedback that you got, you're still great. You're still really good at what you do. And it doesn't, this one incident doesn't change who you are and what you're able to do and your history and your achievements. And it was such an important message at that point in time that I said, yeah, you're right. Even if I get, if I lose my job, I'm going to be able to find something new, and it might actually be better. So I think that, the very important thing here is make sure you surround yourself with people in your life that are supportive and know who you are and will be able to help you lift you up in those tough moments.
That's so important. And what you said is a reminder that we can say to ourselves 1,000 times, we've been through so much and so on. But when someone else shared this with us, like it just hasn't just been accepted, I think, differently. When someone tells you it doesn't define who you are, even though XYZ. So this is a good reminder for everybody who's listening here. Whenever you have this self-doubt, it definitely doesn't define who you are and what you're capable of. And fast forward to a few years ago, what skills and strengths did you have to learn or put out of yourself to make, again, the giant Google to let you follow through with your idea? Like, you shared how it started, but how did you kickstart it even until today? You have an NGO, also backed by Google. What did you have to bring out to yourself, and what did you learn in this journey that enabled you to get there?
Yeah, very good question. I've been thinking about that point, to be honest. So I think the first is resilience. And that's true for any entrepreneur or intrapreneur, or, even if you don't define yourself as an entrepreneur. I think resilience is one of those skills to be able to continue going, even when you're hearing the no, even when you're hearing all those pieces of criticism or people challenging your approach, your way of doing things, your projects, your goals. Understanding what is the core value and what is the core thing you are trying to achieve, and remembering the why you do it. And that's saved me in so many low points during this journey. The just going back to that very simple reason why you do it. And for me, with Unremarkable, is those thank you emails and that real impact that we drive on people, that whatever time we had to raise, to find budget for Unremarkable, and it was, it could be a process of months. We're not talking about even weeks. And it's very easy to go and say, whatever. I'm done with it. It's not my day job. I should stop doing it. I don't understand why I'm doing this. And there are a lot of moments of that. It's just looking back at those emails and that feedback that you got on the things that you do, and remembering that, it might be really hard for you, but the work that you do has real impact on real people. You have the power, and I almost look at this as a responsibility, that I have a tool to help people to make their lives better, and it's my responsibility to make it happen, no matter how hard it is for me. So resilience, understanding the why. So maybe it's not a skill, but it's an item. Being very, very prudent with data measurement. So thinking from day one, what is the types of information that you're going to need to share when you communicate about your work. And this is something that we've done really from day one, making sure that you can actually understand, for Unremarkable, how many people are running workshops, how many facilitators we have, in which countries do we run it, in which companies do we run it, how many people go through the workshop, what do people think about the workshop. So thinking about all these different types, and really being diligent with your data analysis, data collection, sharing of data. Storytelling is really critical. You need to really think how you share your message in a very easy way for people to understand, because your whole goal here is to create a movement of ambassadors that will carry on your message. So it's really, how do you grow this from one to thousands, tens of thousands of people who can share your message. So storytelling is really, really, really important. And I would say one of the important things that is important is really, I call it authenticity, but also having the skill of bringing people along the journey with you. So again, it goes back to the why, it goes back to the having a good goal and a good, big vision for people to join you in that journey, because none of us can do anything on our own. I mean, anything is probably exaggerating, but I mean, you get my point. The point here is, if we talk about big scale and big impact and reaching a global movement, and it can be not a global, it can be a local movement, it can be a smaller project, but there are very few things that we can do just by ourselves. And especially when you're starting something that is not funded yet and doesn't have enough resources, you really need to bring people along with you on the journey. So that's a really, really important skill.
So you shared amazing, remarkable skills and like what helped you to get there. And I also think that in terms of entrepreneurship, this is one of the top stories I've heard about how to really leverage the fact that you're in an organization and there's some shared values involved, and get this organization to help you give you the push that you need, or the resources that you need to get this out there. So this is amazing, and thanks for getting us into kind of the building blocks of that. I have two quick last questions for you. One is, as you see this, and of course, as you have more plans for Rmrkblty, what are some of the future trends for changes, or maybe to normalize the self-worth and confidence that people have in their professional lives?
Yeah, so I think there are, if we're talking about future trends, I think an existing trend is the fact that, like, we do this, we have a lot more virtual interactions versus face-to-face that require probably more skill to transfer through your message, because some of your non-verbal communication is getting lost in the spiritual communication. So that's one really important piece to get right. So something might have this conversation without a camera on the other side, and then it just becomes a voice conversation. And actually, I know many of us haven't had phone calls in many years. So that's one important piece. I think the other one is, we talk about generative AI tools. It actually can really, really help you, because you can, it can help you sharpen your messages. It can really help you think about ways of delivering your message. You can even maybe practice with it on things you might want to say. I really think it's just the beginning. And maybe, when we release this, we can hear more ideas from our listeners. What is possible?
How to use generative AI to feel more comfortable with your self-expression and self-worth. I definitely think this avenue will surprise us with so many great inventions that could definitely support us. And one last thing is what is the one tip that you would give your younger self about being remarkable?
I love this question. I think about that a lot, but I think probably one thing is, don't you limit yourself. So if any limitations are going to come, let them be external, but don't prevent yourself from trying things just because you think they're not going to work. And that's probably one of the biggest learnings I've had through Unremarkable. And I definitely would want my younger self, or any other kid out there, to say that to themselves, so that they grow up to be happy, fulfilled adults.
Amen. That's a beautiful message to finish off this great interview. And honestly, we use the word remarkable here, but you are really remarkable. Your journey, your learnings, your insights, how you brought this thing together with your motivation, and obviously the partners. So it's really amazing, and it's an honor to interview you. And just before we finish, how can people either join, maybe become facilitators, learn more, connect with you?
Yeah, so we're just in a transition period right now, but if you search for #IamRemarkable on Google, you're gonna get to our website. And you're gonna be able to do everything from there. So you'll be able to find a workshop if you want to join a workshop, sign up to become a facilitator, bring Unremarkable to your company. And please do. And also, don't forget social media. So if you search on any social media network for #IamRemarkable, you'll see a lot of our content and facilitators content online.
Amazing. And I will also put the links to Unremarkable and to your LinkedIn just next to this video, if people want to continue learning more about this. Anna Weiner, it has been a great pleasure. I was waiting a long time for this interview, and I'm so happy that we did it in the best timing. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you, Lirone.
Keep being remarkable. And of course, thank you for watching and listening on all the platforms to the Lirone Glikman show, the show that explores the human factor around business and entrepreneurship in a hybrid world. You can definitely subscribe to the channel if you're watching this on YouTube. Leave your comment, and I'll see you on the next shows. Bye.
Bye-bye.